Welcome to Bharat TV and to this new episode of Kahani Kashmir Ki. I'm your host, Deepika Zutshi. Today, we have a very rare and a special opportunity to meet someone who is very knowledgeable about a variety of subjects. Some of the subjects he is an expert on are leadership, management, business, spirituality, our Upanishads, and of course, the history of Kashmir and the current state of the genocide in Kashmir. So, this is going to be a really interesting conversation. The person that I'm inviting today is a very well known author, and he's a published author of several books, not one or two, but several books, both fiction and non-fiction. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to our show, Mr. Rohit Tikoo. Rohit, welcome to the show and namaskar.
Thank you, namaskar.
Rohit, we will talk a lot about, I wanted to ask you about all of your books, one by one by one. I want to ask you about all of your books. But before we dive into the specifics of the books, I would love to know a little bit about the history of your journey. How did you start? How did your journey as an author begin? Please tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so it all started in 1990 itself. I mean, the beginning of the journey started in 1990 itself when, we are staying in Kashmir, and due to the unforeseen events at that moment in time, what happened in Kashmir, which led to, our exodus at that moment. So that was something which, caused a deep psychosomatic impact. I mean, I was clinically depressed for quite, almost 3 years. So that caused a lot more, mental, psychological, whatever you call. I mean, that was the conflict which, as a teenage, I was growing at that moment in time. I was just 19 years old. There was a hormonal change. There was, chemical compositions I was getting a lot more. So at that time, I started, this whole journey started at.
Okay. How did it go from, like you said, you were in a state of depression, you were going through a lot of things. How did that translate into the publishing of books? Because now I'm thinking, you have all the emotional issues that you're dealing with. You also are dealing with the life issues at that point. All of our, KP brothers and sisters have somebody or have themselves gone through that horrible, horrible time in 1989-90. So how does that, negativity and that darkness translate into what I consider a point of positivity and hope, which is now the publication of books? How did that journey happen from a, shy, diffident teenager into a published author? Because you also have to take care of, your life, your livelihood, career. You have to think about all of those things too. So tell me a little bit about what was going on at that time for you.
Exactly. So that was the time when I was, facing anxiety. I was facing a lot of depression. When I, recuperated from the depression and I went through, at that moment in time, I felt that, it is a story which needs to be communicated. I mean, this is a story of resilience. This is a story of confronting back to my anxieties. I mean, if I could confront those challenges and, lead a very positive life, and, obviously it needs to be communicated to someone who's not aware of it. I mean, that is wherein I started that, I should reveal the story which people are not aware of. They don't know. what has experienced to us at that moment in time. So the story needs to be communicated.
Right. Beautiful, beautiful. So tell us about your first book, Uprooted and Forlorn, The Tale of Kashmiri Pandits in Exile. A beautiful, beautiful, very touching title. And tell us a little bit about the narrative in that story, and what it is that you're trying to communicate to the Kashmiri brothers and sisters, but also, like you said, to anybody who doesn't know this story and doesn't know what happened to us.
Yeah, as the book itself reveals, it's the story of uprooted community, right? So it is a story of me. It's a story of my whole community. Mm-hmm. So the entire story, which was striking into my head, started, as I told you, from the depression. So I would just try to narrate one story, the entire story of depression and how it went through. I mean, let me just yeah, it was a bright and hot day of June 1992, right? The clock was striking 2 p.m. I was just woken up to my drowsy medicine. As I told that I was suffering from depression, I was taking, antidepressant medicines. And due to that, most of the time I was feeling drowsy, right? So my mom said, 2 respected people from my native village have come down to seek my welfare. So people from Kashmir, they were aware that I was suffering from something. Was it depression? I was not nice at point that I was suffering from depression, right? Because at that moment in time, the only thing I got to know that it was just a headache. So I had no way, any connection, any understanding what this headache was all about. And the people of Kashmir, the people wherein I belong to Kurigam, a small place in Kazigun. So they came to know that I was suffering from something. I mean, they thought that I was suffering from some physical ailments. So due to that, there was a story. I will let you know what that story was all about. So 2 respected people from my native village, they came down to seek my welfare. These 2 men were Abdul Ahad Wahani and Ghulam Hassan Pare. So seeing me alive. Now try to understand the point. Seeing me alive was the hardest thing to believe, and they hugged me so tightly, as if they have never seen me before. I could sense a warm, affectionate love in their eyes. Tears were rolling down from their eyes in jubilation. Wiping those tears from the eyes, Abdul Ahad Wani hugged me again, saying affectionately that I would live for 200 years. So I could not understand the mystery behind. It was very hard for me to decode the message. Why, they were saying that, I could live for 200 years. That was a problem, right? So though I was curious to understand what transpired them to hug me so tightly and with their moist eyes, I was unable to get any clue. Curiosity has its reason for existence, and it was enough to try merely to comprehend this mystery before my dad revealed it out. My dad revealed it out what this was all about. So my dad told me that in my village, Kazigun, a rumor started that I died of my illness. So they already assumed me that I was dead.
Yeah.
So the fact was, my illness was seriously overstated. I will tell you the entire story. I mean, this is the backdrop of the story. So It was overstated and spread by some miscreants in the Kashmir. It was true that I was suffering. I was suffering from a vague headache from last 2 years. By then, I have consulted many physicians, neurologists, ENT specialists, but the little help. Since some people from Kashmir visited intermittently to seek the welfare of my parents in Udhampur, they got to know that my headache, which was exaggerated to a level that appropriates, exaggerated it to declare my death.
Wow.
And since my dad was loved immensely in Kashmir for guiding and educating people of the area, I was also loved by the whole village alike. Many families exhibit great grief at my death and did not prepare their usual food at that day. Many families decided altogether to condole, my death by visiting my parents in Udhampur. They have decided to hire a bus before they were stopped by Abdul Ahad Wani. One of the most respectable heads of my village decided that a couple of people would understand the situation to see if the death was the reality. Then the other would follow accordingly. since this has turned to my hawks, then they were thrilled to see me alive, hugging and kissing me incessantly. I was overwhelmed by their love and good wishes showered on me. And the event that event took me back to the flashback memory of the sighting reason of my headache. I mean, why I was depressed, what went through, the entire story, which when I was hugged by them, I feel like that, so what was that which led me to depression? Are you getting my point?
Yes. Yeah.
So I went to back to recall the dark cold night of January 99. 19th of January 1990, when I was chilling myself to enjoy my winters with maternal uncle, Mamaji rather, in Chota Bazar. Chota Bazar was a most vulnerable area in Srinagar at that moment. So Chota Bazar was to prepare the remaining two papers of mathematics and English, because in 1989 I was preparing my BSc first year exam. It was first, we had 4 papers out of 2 papers, because there was political turmoil, there was a conflict going on, there was a social conflict, everything was happening around, and due to that the 2 papers were postponed to for March. In October, the 2 papers of English B and mathematics was postponed for March, right? So we had our dinner. We were feeling insecure as the situation in Kashmir at that time had gone worse. Jagmohan was, shown as governor of Jammu and Kashmir at the day itself. The same day, many people were arrested and some of them were dead in police firings. I'm saying about Gaupadal massacre. So Srinagar was the curfew and the situation was very tense. Allah Baksh was the SSP of the Srinagar, and he arrived at the spot to inform protesters to behave and clearly aware the hurdle of Jagmohan, who was appointed as governor. As I told you, he was recently appointed at that day itself. The protester turned hostile and started chanting anti-India slogans. So that was, the entire story came back to me. So what went through on 19th of January, what, we faced, the blood-curdling slogans, which were emanating from the mosque itself, Ye kya bane Pakistan, bata urust batne insan, and, leave Kashmir, go. So that was the time, and we were not able to comprehend anything. I was 19 years old. I was not able to comprehend what is happening around. I was preparing for the final 2 exam, and thereafter, the situation went altogether tense. On the subsequent day, on the 20th January, Gaupadil went, and then thereafter, lots of Kashmiri Hindus were, targeted. Temples were destroyed, houses were gutted, and then the entire community, the most of the people already, Gunju was eliminated, and also, Tikalal Tapalu in September itself was eliminated, and that was the entire story. The story I started revealing what went at that moment in time. So it was a flashback story.
Wow. So I can, as you are describing it to me, I can imagine it playing in my head. And I can only imagine what is going through a 19-year-old's head at the time, with the confusion and the frustration and the not knowing of, what is really happening. Thank you for sharing that. I got goosebumps just listening to some of that. Can you tell me a little bit, Rohit, about how it is that you were finally able to escape from there?
I have revealed the entire story in the book itself. There is one entire chapter of my depression. When I was not myself able to comprehend that, it was clinical psychosomatic impact. I felt that it was a physiological, symptoms. Probably I was suffering from the vague headache. I was not able to comprehend. I went to Dr. Sushi Razdan. He gave me antidepressant, but told me, at that moment in time that, I was suffering from headache. So he did not tell me to treat in that way that, I was suffering from some mental, because people believe right now, there's a stigma attached with the depression, right? People feel, even the doctors believe that, if you told the parents that he's suffering from depression, maybe they may treat him differently. So rather he treated me that I was suffering from some physical disorder. It was a physical symptom, and I was not able to comprehend. I was having sinus problem. Probably I felt sometimes that it was allergic rhinitis. I was suffering from sinusitis. Maybe I was suffering from some and Dr. Sushi Razdan at that moment in time described that it was intermittent exhibition. It was physical disorder, maybe due to the tense muscles and all. So that was how I thought. But later, because I suffered for more than 3 years. Due to that, I was suffering, and I lost my academic career too. The 3 years of academic career, BSc first year, second year, and final year, I just completed in 5 years, and the rest of the community completed in the 4 years. If you just see read my book, you will get to know the entire story, why and how. I mean, at that moment in time when the GGM Science College and MAM College was attached to us, we were not connected with the Jammu University. Rather, we were connected with the Kashmir University. Due to the political conflicts going in Kashmir, we were connected with them, and as such, we were able to complete our academic career, but we were not allowed to enter the exam. And then there was Mandal Commission in 1990, and due to that, also we suffered heavily. So for 3 years, I suffered clinical depression, and then I got to know that I have to come out of it. I slowly started reading Bhagavad Gita. I started reading the other books. Upanishads and all. Then I came to know that I need to confront my challenges and I need to come out of it. When I came out, then I thought that I need to tell my entire story.
Yeah, what a wonderful story, and like you said, of resilience and hope. I am going to take a minute here to note a couple of things for anybody who might have just joined us. The book that we are talking right now about is Uprooted and Forlorn, The Tale of Kashmiri Pandits in Exile, that has been written by author Rohit Tikoo. And I also want to take a moment, and I really appreciate the fact, Rohit, that this is such a deeply personal story and that you're sharing it here today with us. So I do want to be respectful of that and honor you for that, but also tell all of our Kashmiri Pandit brothers and sisters who are watching this and who may have either gone through this or are currently suffering from it. I've had family members who also suffered in a very similar fashion. Unfortunately, their end wasn't a positive one. But anybody who is suffering, I do want to reiterate that mental health is very important. And if you are sick, not physiologically, but mentally, that is also an ailment, a sickness. So please seek help and get help, because help is out there if you meet the right doctor and get diagnosed properly, because that is important for your complete and full well-being. And that is a very well-known issue that a lot of our Kashmiri brothers and sisters have gone through and are still going through. But please don't hide it. This is not a secret. It's not anything to be ashamed of. This is something that you can get help for and you should get help for. Rohit, thank you for sharing that story and for giving hope to our other Kashmiri brothers and sisters that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I really appreciate that. I do want to ask you, and you mentioned that, spirituality helped you a little bit. You have written another book, and it's called Upanishads, The Concentrated Wisdom. Tell us a little bit about how did that come about, and tell us your journey into spirituality, and what is it that you are trying to share with your audience via that book?
Well, as I told you that, it was Bhagavad Gita actually, which helped me a lot. It was when, I was going through the depression. I went through AIMS, I treated it, GGM Science College. I treated it with Dr. Mania. I treated, I went to Dr. Sushi Razdan. Nobody helped me. But even, the doctors in AIMS, they were not able to understand, the vague symptoms and all. it was only after I went to Gangaram Hospital, Dr. Sethi was there, and he communicated everything. He was so frank. He was so upright to me, and he told me that I was suffering from depression, and obviously I need to give him 100% so that I can come out. He shared one book with me. It was Bhagavad Gita itself. It was written by Prabhupada from ISKCON itself, the founder. So I got my first spiritual enlightenment from a book which was handed over to me by a doctor itself. I mean, he was not treating me physiologically, he was treating me psychologically, and he handed over me that book, and which helped me a lot. I mean, after reading Prabhupada, I read a lot of his books. I read it, then Paramans Yogananda, his autobiography of a yogi, and then Divine Romance, Eternal Quest, and then I read Swami Vivekananda. Then I started reading the other aspects of it. Then I got to know, obviously, life is not only about the challenges. I need to confront those challenges and need to understand various aspects of his psychological symptoms, and need to tell anyone that you can come out of it. It's not a big thing. Obviously, the fact of the only thing is that you need to acknowledge that yes, you are suffering from it. No matter what is the stigma attached with it, you have to confront your own challenges, own fears, and then you need to come out with certain aspects. And Bhagavad Gita helped me a lot, because everything from Raj Yoga to spiritual aspect, Karma Yoga, and then Dhyan Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, everything was mentioned into that. And then it helped me to understand what is life, what is soul, what is the purpose of the life, how we should proceed. The entire journey started from it, and then I started reading a lot of books. Because of that, I could able to write that Upanishad, the concentrated wisdom.
The one part that really appealed to me about that was the fact that you were describing the fact that our society these days has become very materialistic, very outward looking. And what we need is to look inward and leave the materialism aside and look inward and develop our character. And that's what is going to give us peace and happiness. And that really resonated very well with me.
Yes, that's correct.
Good. I also want to talk a little bit about your other book that you've written about fake news. But before I do that, since you're so knowledgeable about the media, I want to ask you a question about the fact that why do you think that the global media, when all of these atrocities were happening and when the genocide was happening, and I still consider it continuing, but let's talk about, the 90s and when all of these things were happening, and the 80s as well, it was almost as if the media and, national media as well as the international media did not really highlight the plight of the Kashmiri Pandits. And what I feel is that now, today, when something happens, things get highlighted, everything gets plastered all over the media. Why do you think that there was such a huge blackout, it seems, on the plight of the Kashmiri Pandits? What happened there? Did we not have a voice? Did we not yell and speak loudly enough? What happened, in your opinion?
Well, I guess at that moment in time, the media was not that active. There was only one channel, Doordarshan, and which was a government-sponsored channel. I mean, even at that moment, we was, watching BBC, Voice of America, and other, news channels from the radio itself to get some sort of a news, which was a bit exaggerated. Always media tend to be showcasing the yellow journalism. I mean, the aspects which they they are fetching rich dividends in terms of the TRPs, in terms of the financial incentives and all, in terms of the credits, wherein they need to now. Earlier, the journalists were doing a lot of diligent hard work. I mean, even for one particular story, they were trying to go through every aspect of it, but and to reveal the true credentials of the story. But gone are those days. As you said that what went through, probably at that moment in time there were no media. There was only the print media, which did not showcase. Unfortunately, it did not showcase the plight of Kashmiri Pandits the way it should have been. I don't know the reason. Probably, the reason tend to be the same. It is perpetuating unabated. I mean, the reason is again the same. The yellow journalism, the TRPs, and apart from, the government pressures. So, which was then perpetuating, which is now perpetuating. I mean, the entire editorial section is being reflected and showcased by somewhere else. I mean, what needs to be showcased today at 9 p.m., the prime time news, everything. I mean, anything which goes against the government, which goes against the government, then I'm not saying about, the BJP, I'm not saying about the Congress, whosoever is ruling. I mean, at that time when 1990, there was a sort of a media, though at the media was somehow accountable, but they were not having that huge what I can say, that they were not having many aspects of the news. I mean, the news was not accessible. There was only print media. Electronic media came much later, up in 1992, 1993, and then it started coming down. And with the passage of the time, the quality of the news started deteriorating. And that's why I wrote a book on the yellow journalism, the media trial and the fake news propaganda and all. This is always, this is reflected in that. So as you said, that what went in 1990, why it was not showcased, probably that was the reason that there was only print media. Electronic media was not available, and even the print media might have its own compulsions. Maybe the government compulsions, government forces at that time. Yes, there were a lot of social factors, political factors, which contributed to the problem. And if they showcase that, probably they were going to have some sort of a problem. So that was the reason. That might have been the reason that they didn't showcase it that way.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, I accept that as an explanation. We could talk a lot more about it, but I do want to ask you one other thing: is how did you personally feel on August 5th, a couple of years ago, when Article 370 was abrogated? Did that feel like we were one step closer to finding peace, or feeling some kind of a help in in your mind, as well as based on everything that happened to you? Tell me a little bit about if that made any impact on you.
No, it didn't make any impact on me. I knew that even if it was scrapped, because Article 370 was never it came only after Vivek Agnihotri revealed it in the the movie itself. However, when we faced the exodus, Article 370 was never talked about, and I didn't feel that even if it was scrapped, it would until and unless there is not a sort of government resolution to fix the problem of Jammu and Kashmir, it's not going to go anywhere. I mean, be it Article 370, be it Article 35A, scrapping of Article 370 on 5 August 2019 I did not anticipate that it is going to finish the problem of Kashmir, as long as we are not confronting the real problems of Jammu and Kashmir. So since that is not being discussed, that is not being talked about, Article 370 even then was not something which I considered was something of paramount importance. Still, I did not feel it's a paramount. It has some significance because it did not change any of the parameters. It did not change. The Kashmiri community is still the exodus is still perpetuating unabated. And even the people who left behind in 1990 have started, migrating again from the Kashmir itself. So Article 370 did not have any positive impact on us, even scrapping of it, until and unless, yes, though this is considered a positive, aspect, people, appreciated that. Kashmiri community, my father itself appreciated. I was slightly, pessimistic. I was cynical, still tend to be cynical about it, as long as, they do not prove me wrong. Are you getting my point? I'm not optimistic about it, that, Article 370 was removed and now the entire problem of Kashmiri Pandit is going to be, because I tell you honestly, in 89, when Rubaya Said kidnapping happened, you must be aware of that, right? And then there was an exchange of 5 dreaded terrorists. At that moment, and every Kashmiri Pandit will, assume and believe that it was Rajiv Gandhi, and in course with Farooq Abdullah, which started, the problem started because of that, 1984, 1986, and then 1989, and then 1990. So it is attributed to them. No doubt it is attributed to them. But what happened in 1989 when 6th of December, Rubaya Said was kidnapped, and 13th of December, she was, the exchange of 5 dreaded terrorists was, done. So at that moment, it was the BJP. It was the BJP which was supporting the, the government, right? Janata Dal government, the VP Singh government. So they did not think at that moment to consider taking support from the Janata Dal government, right? And it was only when Lal Krishan Advani was arrested for the Rath Yatra in Bihar itself by Lalu Prasad Yadav, they took off the support. So to take a moral high ground on it, that they were the one who supported us in 89. No, they didn't support. They didn't take off the support. 5 dreaded KLF terrorists were released, including Ghulam Nabi Bhatt, which was the Maqbul Bhatt's younger brother, whose JKLF killed this many Kashmiri Pandits, even including the Justice Ganju who hanged him for death, Maqbul Bhatt, right? So I got to know. I mean, even in 1990 when Masood Azhar was released, it was the BJP at that moment in time. So I'm not saying that, this Kashmir file obviously was something which, the government is taking a sort of a credit. Even I'm saying, I'm not, favoring any particular government. I'm not saying that, it is the BJP or it was the Congress. I'm saying that entire Kashmir community problem remains to be the same. Article 370, Article 35A, scrapping of it does not have any positive impact on us. Are you getting my point? I mean to say that I'm not optimistic about it.
What do you think are the top 2 or 3 things that could be done to actually be helpful to the Kashmiri Pandit community right now, and also the people who are still suffering, who are still in, Jagti and Mutti and all of those camps? What are some of the things that the government can do that would help?
First of all, I feel that, the exodus, the genocide has to be acknowledged. It has not been acknowledged. Even the people who were fighting for it, even the roots of Kashmir, which had its litigation in the court, was turned down by the Supreme Court itself. And later, the anti-Sikh rights were, taken. I mean, the Supreme Court had pure violation in the on the grounds that it was much, from 1989 to 1996. So, probably taking more than 27 years or so. Then, they take something, 1984. Are you getting my point? What I want to say? 84 के जो दंगे हुए थे, Sikh community के दंगे, they took, and the acknowledgement of the genocide is not being done, neither by the government nor by the judiciary. Nothing, of that sort has been done. First and foremost, it has to be accepted. It has to be acknowledged that the genocide of Kashmiri Pandits happened. It happened, Bandhama happened. Nadi Marg happened, Chatti Singhpura happened, Sangrampura happened. I'm not talking about the individual, killings. I am saying the mass murders. I mean, Vandhama more than 16, 17, and apart from that, you can see 24, 25 in other, even the 6 in Chatti Singh Pura were killed. So we have to accept, we have to acknowledge that the genocide happened. There was the religious persecution. I always believe that, there were two perceptions about 1989 exodus. One was citing that it was the democratic expression of Kashmiri Muslims, the majority of the Muslims, because the elections in 1987 were rigged. Because of that, they felt pissed off, and they felt that now we should take guns. I did not buy that argument at all. The fact of the matter is that rigging has happened in every aspect of India. Political rigging happened everywhere, and it was not in Kashmir only that 1987 the political rigging happened, and the problem was because of that. And even the culmination of that, in regard to that, Kashmiri Muslims felt that it was the Jagmohan who forced us. So that is not the case. It was pure religious persecution. I mean, it is happening from last 700 years, from from Shamir dynasty to right now. It is continuously happening. It has happened in Mughal dynasty. It has happened in when Afghans rulers. It has happened when obviously from 1947 there has been 1984 conflict. There has been 1986. 86 was far more severe at that moment. Manipur temples were destroyed. So there has been the genocide, and that has to be acknowledged. There has been the religious persecution. It has to be accepted. First, they need to talk to the the leaders of Kashmiri Pandit community. Talk to our leaders. Sit together. See what could be the resolution. I mean there has to there has to be a common grounds, because whenever there has been some communication between Kashmir and the government, it is always between the Hurriyat and the government. Be it then government, and be it now the government. It is always as if they are the people who could have the resolution. I mean, without Kashmiri Pandits, how can there be a resolution? I mean, that has to be accepted, that has to be acknowledged. You need to talk to the Kashmiri Pandit leaders, sort the differences, what could be done, obviously, and that's it.
Yeah, I agree with you on both your points, Rohit. Tell me a little bit more about the second point. So here's where I stand on it, and I know I'm not supposed to share my opinion per se and ask you yours, but I do want to share this little bit of an opinion where I sometimes feel that, you said a lot of conversations happen between the government and the Hurriyat, or, whoever it is at the table, but the Kashmiri Pandit representation is missing. And I agree with you on that. Do you think it's missing because we don't have a unified leadership that speaks for our entire community? Do you think, because sometimes I feel that is a problem, because we'll have so many of these organizations that come up, and a lot of people are claiming to be the true representatives of the Kashmiri Pandit community, but I don't hear or see a unified voice with one leadership that can force the issue of being present at the table in all of those conversations. And that's where I feel like we sometimes get left behind because of that. Would you agree?
Yes, I do agree. It's partly true. The second part of it is, we are not a substantial vote bank. The first part, I agree 80% of it. I mean, if I have to divide the entire problem into two, major problems, if I have to drill it down to two significant problems, I would definitely go with first one, which you are saying about is Kashmiri community does not have a unified leadership. I mean, every Kashmiri Pandit is a leader in itself. I mean, there are so many parties, there are so many leaders, and they have different perceptions. Even in the Panun Kashmir itself, there are different perceptions. There are different, leaders who tend to behave differently. I mean, I'm not telling you the name of those, people. I can cite you hundreds of pages into that. But having said that, my point of contention is not to say that, the one leader has a problem and the second does not have the. Yes, I do agree that, majority of us, we do not have a unified leadership. We do not have a leader which entire Kashmiri community will accept him as a leader, because there is some sort of a problem with us. We do not accept easily. I mean, we do not accept leaders, right? So maybe there is a sense of paranoia, there is a sense of skepticism, there is a sense of I don't know what, maybe probably what has caused in 1990 the turmoil which I was suffering from. Maybe that mentality is still, we are still suffering from that same mentality. So one aspect of it is, yes, we do not have a good leadership, we do not have a unified leadership which is being accepted by the general masses. But the second part is also there, we are not a substantial vote bank. That's why no government, be it the past government, be it the present government, they are not considering us. I will give you two examples. I will give you one particular example. There happened in UP, जो दंगे हुए थे, Hindu and Muslim, conflict, and there were Karyana Hindus were, they suffered the same way Kashmiri Pandits suffered, and they went through. But the government did a fantastic job. They did a good job. They sent them back, and they rehabilitated them. They provide them financial assistance. They provide whatever could be done, and now they are settling back to their residential places in Haryana, UP. Why? The reason being, they are substantial vote bank. They can change the political narrative. Kashmiri Pandit is never considered as a political vote bank. Be it what, it is only being used as a political tool to consolidate the vote bank by every government, and it is perpetuating, unabating. Still, it is continuing the same way. So that is the difference. Yes, I do agree that the leadership is missing, and also, as I told you, there is also that Kashmiri Pandit does not, form a substantial vote bank.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. Absolutely agree with you on that. You mentioned the fact that these Hindus in UP were re-established in their homeland, and that made me think of one more thing. Do you think Kashmiri Pandits will ever be able to go back to the valley?
If you want an honest answer of that, I don't feel so. There is no, political resolution. There is no political, I'm missing a particular vote, a sort of, believe that, Kashmiri Pandits could come back. The political will is missing. And the second is also, Kashmiri Pandits are not willing to go back. Even if everything seems to be everything perfect, now the situation in Kashmir is not the same. What it happened to be 1989, earlier to 1989, maybe 1980 in 80s. The fact of the matter is that it has changed. The entire, focus has changed. The entire narrative has been changed there. People can go Kashmir only to, use as a, become a political tourist there. Become a tourist. I don't feel, to be honest, I don't feel like, if I am being asked to go back to Kashmir, probably I won't go. The reason is that I'm paranoid still. I'm suffering from the same mentality, the way they were treating us, and the way, we have been treated earlier. I mean, this has not changed. The entire, until and unless the entire focus is not changed, the social, mental, and psychological imperative of the people's mindset has not been changed. I'm against the religious persecution. That's why my social feeds are all about, not about, I don't want what has happened with the Kashmiri Pandit has to happen with the Kashmiri Muslim. To be honest, I never ever want this to happen, because I can understand the plight, I can understand the problem, the mental problem, one suffers. I suffered from for 3 consecutive years. People at that moment in time felt that, I was dead. Even my parents thought that, I couldn't be alive. I was suffering from some schizophrenia. I was suffering from some deep mental ailments. I couldn't get back to, normal life and all. So that is still there, because, the conflict, which is, the seeds are always there. I mean, that is happening right now. from the different perspective. Are you getting my point? What I want to say, the way the religious persecution has affected me, I don't want that religious persecution has to affect some other religion too. I don't want that tit for tat. What has happened in Kashmir has to happen in UP, and the Muslims has to live there, and then obviously they suffer the same. I don't want that. So, as if you are telling me if you are going back to Kashmir, maybe I may not. Probably someone may go, because it depends upon the mental state, as well as their understanding about the Kashmir. My understanding about the Kashmir has not changed. I mean, I have intermittently gone back to Kashmir. I have seen the same temperament there. I have seen the same mental state. That there is, the status quo is there. I mean, there has not been a slight shift, a positive shift. What it used to be earlier, there has been no, changes. So that is wherein I feel slightly cynical about it. That Kashmiri, other members may go back and settle there. Maybe someone may go, but I'm not sure about them. I'm not sure about myself.
Wow, and that makes perfect sense. Everybody's circumstances and thought processes are different. So definitely. Something you said that was very interesting to me, that you said, you don't believe in tit for tat, eye for an eye. You don't want others to suffer how the Kashmiri Pandit population suffered. Do you think that is a general sentiment among all Kashmiri Pandits, and that is why we never raise? I mean, just the thought of the things that our community faced as religious persecution, but you don't hear of a single incident or a single episode where a Kashmiri Pandit raised, weapons and arms and attacked somebody in retaliation. I haven't heard of a single incident or episode that happened. Do you think that's because of a similar sentiment that you shared, which is, we as Kashmiri Pandits, we will not, respond, violence with violence?
No, I was not saying about the Kashmiri Pandit community. Being a Kashmiri, I was saying about general, perception. I mean, the Kashmiri community is genetically not made for that. I mean, we do not have that understanding that, if somebody kills me, I need to kill, two people. So probably our understanding is somehow different than, the other parts of, the community. I mean, I always treat Kashmiri community as a separate community in terms of the mental makeup. I mean, the understanding of materialistic as well as the spiritual aspects of the life. So when I was saying that, I do not believe in that, religious persecution has to happen the same way it has happened with Kashmiri Pandits. I was not saying that, it was the Kashmiri Pandit who has retaliated back with the guns. There has been a culture that, we want to do the same. I was saying about, what is happening right now in the India right now, because somehow this religious line, politicians are drawing some religious lines to make people fight with each other. I mean, because of that, my point of contention remains, that we need not to, allow ourselves to be as a tool in the hands of the, politicians to be used against one particular community, because in the end itself, you suffer, because when it has happened with us, probably a Kashmiri Muslim at that moment in time might not have, thought that, it could lead to such a psychological, such a mental, what do you call, the conflicts, and it may cause, the deep psychological problems in the Kashmiri community. Maybe they might not have thought it that way. And what I'm saying, we as a Kashmiri Pandits are not made for that. But, somehow, somewhere, when politicians are using us as a political tool, that must not happen. That is what I was saying. I was not saying that, Kashmiri Pandit need to come and, they are not doing it. I'm saying it. I'm casting aspersions to them. I'm casting aspersions on Kashmiri Pandit community. That they no, it was not my point. I was not making that point.
Sure. And and the reason why I explored that a little bit more is because I feel that, Kashmiri Pandits specifically, we are just a bunch of, scholars and academicians, and, we have a very long history of spirituality in the valley. We are more geared towards, studying and scholarly pursuits than, and you said something before that, that's not our makeup. And yeah, I feel like we are not made for that anyway. That's not where our thinking goes.
Yes, and it won't go. I don't think we have given the same upbringing to our children. No Kashmiri Pandit will ever say that, since a Kashmiri Muslim has caused you a problem, now you need to cause the same problem. That's not our genetic makeup. That's not our mental makeup. That is not our, social, mental state. So I was saying something different. I mean, my observation was in a generic terms,
Uh-huh.
not in terms of, our own culture, our own community.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I want to move on to, and I know we are coming towards the last 10 minutes of our conversation, so I want to make sure that I get in some of the important questions that I wanted to ask you. So, our show, we are based out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and so our show is watched by a lot of Kashmiri Pandits as well as other non-Kashmiri Pandits outside of India as well. How do you feel, and what do you feel that the Kashmiri Pandit diaspora, because we have all moved out of the valley and moved to different countries, different cities within the nation, how can that diaspora help in raising national awareness as well as global awareness regarding, and you said, the fact that it has not even been acknowledged as a genocide. What can the community at large do in order to make that happen and to get some peace to the people who did suffer?
Well, the belief in general community, the belief in, I'm not saying about the people staying, overseas. I'm saying about the people who are staying in small, villages here in Udhampur, maybe in Jammu. I'm saying about their own perception. They feel like that, the overseas community, which needs to do more about, they are not doing their work. I'm not saying, I'm not still casting aspersions. So maybe we
Sure.
are, the people are not having that awareness, and they need to create that awareness first. I mean, they need to create that, yes, there is a community, there are the community leaders, there is a diaspora,
Mhm.
which need to, create a semblance, create a sort of, believe that, yes, there, as I told, as you yourself acknowledge that, we are skeptical of, the Kashmiri Pandit leaders. I mean, we feel like that, there is not a, unified leadership. And
Sure.
since, that is missing, that, diaspora, that overseas community, that great leaders, the academicians should come and discuss with, they should build up, pressure groups, and they should, force, the government. I mean, until and unless government is not forced to, say our, have our share into that, they are not going to. There is not going to any, resolution for Kashmir. Are you?
Mhm.
What I
Yeah.
mean to say that until and unless it is not, there has to be, the resolution has to come from two ways. One,
Mhm.
the, it has to form the pressure groups to work with the government, and second, it has to form relationship with the general community. The mass community, the people who are staying in, the remote areas.
Mhm.
Not the, the urban population, but the population who lives in the villages. I mean, the perception is there that, there's no Kashmiri Pandit community. The overseas community has to come. They have to create awareness. They have to, be socially present. They have to create these social groups. The Facebook, maybe the Twitter, maybe, the social presence is missing. They have to
Mhm.
create. The responsibility, the accountability lies with them. They have to
Mhm.
work, the two way. They have to work with the
Mhm.
government, and they have to work with us as well.
Yeah, I like those two aspects, the way you've connected them together. A very, very good suggestion. I'll be sure to socialize that from my end as much as I can. So thank you for that. So you gave us a very good plan for what the Kashmiri diaspora can do. Tell me a little bit about what you think non-Kashmiri Indians can do. What do you think their role should be in this entire debacle? I consider this, huge,
Well,
the
yes,
situation that we have.
yes. You need to, they need to understand what has happened with Kashmiri Pandits. The presence, the way I have written the book, the way movie was created, the way the others are coming up with the books. They are forming a sort of a resolution to make the non-Muslims believe that there has been one community which has suffered the religious persecution, and they need to educate themselves. They need to read more about it. They need to understand the various perspectives about not in terms of the fanatic belief, but in terms of secular credentials, that yes, there is a community which has suffered massively, and we need to acknowledge it. It has to be acknowledged by government. It has to acknowledge by the other groups. It has to acknowledge by the religious groups as well, religious communities. They have to understand that the genocide has happened. They have to acknowledge it, and they have to make sure that they are the ones who do not allow the religious persecution to happen, repeat the same way. I mean, it has to come down. The mitigation process must be there. There has to be some way to believe that yes, they have to come openly to say that the genocide has happened, not hide behind it that nothing, that sort of there was a propaganda. There is even the Vivek Agnihotrim's film is being reflected as a propaganda by majority of the population. Maybe the politicians and all, which can reach political dividends, but they have to understand the reality has happened. If he has revealed that the story of Girija Tikoo has happened.
Right.
If the story was Sarla Bhatt has happened. If the story of Bandhama has happened. Chatti Singhpura has happened. Sangrampura has happened. Even the Doda, there has been the mass murders. Obviously, the acknowledgement has to come from them, not consider. I mean to say that sometimes we believe because of our conditioned beliefs. I mean because of our religious belief that I am a Hindu, now I need to understand only one aspect, that it is whatever a Hindu says has to be acknowledged. Whatever, since I am a Muslim, that I believe in sort of a system. A mental makeup has to be there, that only a Kashmiri Muslim or a different Muslim group can be persecuted, and they are being persecuted. No, it has happened with time and again with every community. I mean it's happening with us. So let us acknowledge each other's problem. Let us, if there is a problem, we need to acknowledge. As a Hindu, I need to acknowledge if there is a problem with someone happening on the basis of the religion. I need to accept it. I need to admit it that it is happening. If something has happened with me, a Muslim, a non-Muslim, or any other community, he has to come and yes, it is happening with you. It has happened with you. Acknowledgement is the first aspect of it. It has to be acknowledged. Then only comes the the alternative resolution.
Right, and then the healing then starts to happen. So
exactly.
So yeah,
healing will only start. Healing will only start when I will tell you my own story. When I was suffering from clinical depression, I was not myself aware of it. When Dr. Sethi told me that he acknowledged that I was suffering from that. I need to acknowledge that yes, it is not the physical disorder, it is not the physical symptoms of the headache, but it is the psychology. First of all, the entire onus was shifted on me that I need to accept it. So acceptance and acknowledgement is the first part of the resolution. Until and unless I resolved myself, I came out fighting depression only because when I believe that yes, I was suffering from depression and I need to come out of it. Similarly, the acknowledgement and acceptance has to come from the other community. Yes, it has happened, then only the healing will start. The way healing has started with me, the healing will start with us as a community.
Beautiful. Yes, and I actually totally agree with you on that, and that's very beautifully stated. So thank you for that. Um, Before I let you go, I want to talk very quickly about your latest book, Kashmiri Pandits: A Tale of Solitude and Survival. Give us a little summary of the book, please, and tell us what it is. What is the message that you were trying to give to all of us?
This is extended version of my first book, Uprooted and Forlorn, The Tale of Kashmiri Pandits. The fact of the matter is, that the first book thought of possible resolution. I mean, we believe that after some years, probably, when BJP came into the power, that, we are going back. So probably we are settling back. Yeah, this was as per the, election manifesto in both in 2014 and 2019, and the entire, political narrative has shifted from that. So, and the entire, exodus was happening again. I mean, they, you know, the people who stayed back in Kashmir, they also, maybe, you are aware of what happened in Shupian, Kulgam, and the people, the family members have left. It is the second aspect. The earlier book suggests, the emphasis was in 1989, 1990, or what happened then, and then it is telling beyond what happened from 2021 onwards. When Bindru was killed. Subsequently, when the teachers were killed and other parts, the targeted killings happened and all, and then scrapping of Article 370, 35A was removed. And it uh, tells the entire story. And apart from that, what was the political shift, and what was the our narrative in terms of going back. So what as an individual I was thinking about Kashmir, what my father was thinking, maybe probably my peers were thinking about the Kashmir, maybe that was wherein we feel that possibly we are going back to settle. That is why I told that I am now cynical after 3 years continuously looking the various aspects. If I just connect the dots, I believe that it's not going to happen in near future. So
Yeah.
the second book, this book is more about the targeted killing of Kashmiri Pandits, which has perpetuated since 2021 onwards.
Yeah, sad, but true. Anybody who hasn't picked up a copy of Kashmiri Pandits: A Tale of Solitude and Survival, I would highly recommend everybody read that. And of course, the previous book too, Uprooted and Forlorn. I think everybody is going to learn a lot and to be faced with everything that our entire community has faced, and it's such a beautiful mirror to all of us to see your beautiful writing and read your beautiful words. Thank you, Rohit. I really appreciate your time today, and I appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us and the community today. Are there any last words you would like to share before we let you go?
I mean to say, there's no last word, but only I need to believe in that. There has to be some sort of a moderation in terms of the thinking. I mean, enough is enough. I mean, the hate which has been propagated in our minds, the vendetta, it needs to go. I mean, never ever is going to cleanse ourselves. The poison is not going to cleanse ourselves. So have resolutions, try to fix the problems, be calm, and try to fix whatever is happening. I mean, politically or socially, we need to resolve it amicably by having a cool temperament. That's what I want to say, rather than indulging what our politicians want us to indulge in, and make a narrative out of it, and then that's not going we are not going to have any sort of resolution with that. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying in between the lines. I'm not able to comprehend what I want to communicate. You can just comprehend between the lines. I mean to say that that vindictiveness, that the toxicity is not going to take us anywhere. I mean, that's not going to resolve our problem. I mean, let us have first and foremost, we need to see that, how we can go back to Kashmir. If there's a, solution to it, let us create that solution. Let us create the pressure group. Let us create, more awareness about the Kashmiri community as a, as a persecution is happening. It's continuously happening unabated, and that needs to be acknowledged. We need to make sure that, we can have a sort of our share in terms of making it happen. Are you getting my point? What I want to say that, let us have our own share by not creating a more conflicts, but rather than resolving those conflicts in terms of the mitigations and get it there.
Yeah, what a beautiful message, and I also, what I took away from this was, you saying two wrongs don't make a right. So forget about that. Instead, be proactive, be, hopeful, and then work towards betterment of the community and of yourselves, rather than trying to perpetuate and, like you said, play into the political games. Why should we waste our time doing that and being pawns in games that we don't even sometimes understand? Rather than that, we should work together as a community, and that's the message of hope that I took away from you today. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. To all our viewers, thank you for joining us today. And Kahani Kashmir Ki is your show. So if you have anything to share with us on the show, please contact me, and I will be happy to talk about you and talk to you, and we can have a conversation as a community. And like Mr. Tikoo explained to us today, that we should work together as a community. I feel like this forum hopefully encourages that, and I invite you to come on this stage and talk to the community, so we can all work towards the betterment of your community. So to all of you, have a wonderful day. I'm your host, Deepika Zutshi, and in Kahani Kashmir Ki today. Thank you very much, Mr. Tikoo.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.